International finances. Hello, dear colleagues. And now, I beg your pardon, although I'm stumbling upon this word roundtable, because today's audience are representing a decentralized world, an absolutely decentralized world. That's why, if we're colleagues or not colleagues, we will find out. I suggest that we make no conclusions today, but everyone is supposed to decide for themselves. It's going to be quite a lot. I'd like to represent our speakers today. Thank you. Thanks to all those who agreed to participate in this roundtable. Nikolai Zagvoskin, Advocat Crypto, Mikhail Uspensky, Association of Russian Lawyers, Andrei Mikhalishin, Digital Payments, Victor Dost, Association of Electronic Money, Denis Zheleznov, Alpha Bank, and Stepan Kuznetsov, an expert of the FinMin of Russia. Bank of Russia has published a report on DeFi. It's very important to say that the nature of this report is kind of analytical. Now we are observers, and how we should should we escape this position. This is the subject of our today's discussion. What is important to say is that the DeFi has been much talked about in the world actively. There's a lot of open issues, and the DeFi, as any other innovations, requires very cautious attitudes on the behalf of the market actors, and very important attention of all the countries and all the regulators in all the countries. I'd like to say, to stress that today's roundtable, where's that roundtable, by the way? I think we need to represent this roundtable and to define what is DeFi and what is centralized finances. And today we're having kind of a warm-up. Tomorrow we're going to have another session by Mr. Kovrigin about DeFi. Today we're having a warm-up, and any kind of group having a warm-up, we have the right to kind of incite the audience, and we have the right to misbehave a little bit. Let's try. Let's start from the voting. From some voting, I am asking everyone to log in the password 12678. Would you go to that section and start the voting? In the beginning, we are supposed to have 3 issues to answer. The first one: if you ever used DeFi, let's wait for 30 seconds. 567 is the password.
Начнем с лингвистического мнения. Значит, DeFi точно, потому что все-таки как бы это аббревиатура пришедшая.
No, let's take the next issue. I think it's enough. Now, for all those who have answered, everything gets frozen. And the voting, is it on now? Can we continue? Next issue: why you haven't used the DeFi. For all those who have answered no, I won't make an influence upon your opinion, but I like the answer. Everything is alright, everything is suitable for me. I think it's a great answer. Great. I think we can complete. And the last question before we start our discussion is why you have used the DeFi. I won't make an influence upon your opinion, but let us try to see your answers. I think it's also very good. Everyone likes it. This is the answer. It's great. It looked great when the first and second variant got equal. Let's try to sort things out. If there's any future behind it, the first issue, I want to give the first question to Nikolai Zagvoskin. It's very great. I'm happy that we're having today not only all those people who are producing new financial services, but all those representing the journalist community. Advocat Crypto is one of the first to have written about our report. I hope you have read them. You have read this report. And Advocat Crypto is one of those Telegram channels I subscribed a long time ago. I like reading it very much. Nikolai, you understand who your target audience is and for whom you're writing and what are interests of those people and who those people are. I'd like to ask you what good and what especially bad news can be found on that market. Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk today as a journalist because I think that my technical competences are not that high in contrast to the other participants of this imaginable round table. Talking about the popularity of DeFi, on the whole, This is connected with the interest of the people who get interest, have an interest towards the cryptocurrencies market, which is quite clear. If we have a look at the statistics of requests in the Google, we will see two basic peaks or hikes. The first one timed with September of 2020, which is quite clear, because it was not the first token device provided very good access, and they were growing at 1,000% something, which triggered a lot of big interest in the Google and the Yandex. Then this interest died down somehow. The tokens began to go cheap, and there was a gap between the first and next peak, which was timed with April of this year, which is connected with the history of the Stefan project. You remember those running shoes? Many opinion leaders were hyping about that. Some bloggers, numerous bloggers, were running on those running shoes, and they were about even to put those shoes on their pets to earn money, to make money out of those tokens. And this triggered also an interest to the enhanced interest towards the cryptocurrencies. Then there was a kind of a breakthrough in May, when that sad story happened to the Terra project. Now, the interest to the DeFi among the common readers is lower on the whole than the interest towards conventional Ethereum or Bitcoin, which is quite clear. I will tell why later. Talking about your question about people who are interested in DeFi, for me, I divide them into two types. The first, the people who, on the whole, consider DeFi as a huge phenomenon, not only in cryptocurrencies, but on the whole, on the world. What is interesting for them is the blockchain technology, everything about DeFi. It's not about that they're contrasting, they're comparing DeFi with the traditional banking system. It's not always the fact that the DeFi should replace the banking, but they're talking about how we make it better, the banking market better. It's interesting how it is developing, how to make our world better. And the second thing, the second group of people is the most numerous group of people. Those people want to make money. On the whole, it's quite normal when someone wants to make money. They want to make money either on purchasing and further selling of tokens, or on obtaining interest percent from their investments, or on developing their own projects based on DeFi. It's good. It's nothing bad in this profiteering. It attracts people, and then later on they start to hear something about DeFi, about cryptocurrencies. They try to buy something, study something, and then they try to get immersed in technical part. There's a lot of people like this among my friends, among my acquaintances. There are some examples. We had a person who worked in our editing house, and he quit then, and then rushed and got immersed in this one of those projects. Attitude of people to DeFi is, we're talking here about neophytes mainly, although about people who are more immersed in this aspect and these technologies. Their attitude are formed and including the news coming from us, and that news, as you have said, is good, and there's bad news also. Another side is that another fact is if this news is good or not. Last year, there was quite a lot of news about that SEC and their attitude to define the SEC representative. On the whole, we're talking about DeFi. That DeFi is kind of similar to some products of the traditional financial market. That's why it should be regulated according to them. They would compare, if I'm not mistaken, with the hedge funds, mutual funds, and the peer-to-peer projects. So those platforms are connected with loans and crediting, and there are some schemes that the SEC signed an agreement, a contract with an analytical platform, Chain is how its name sounds like, that helps tracing some suspicious transactions with DeFi. On the other hand, the same SEC keeps talking very often that this is how we call the DeFi decentralized financial, but they disagree with that. They believe that in some areas, on the contrary, DeFi is highly centralized. They are likely to We're talking about some company or one person making their own influence, certain strong influence. And the other news that is coming is good news for all those who are tracing, watching, and have already worked in this area. That the DeFi market has been growing at almost 1,000%. And the amount of funds blocked amounted to hundreds of millions of dollars. And some colleagues are comparing what is going on in DeFi with the OCO boom that took place in 2017. And it's clear that more or less super hyped aspects occur from time to time. People make their money from. In 2020, in the year 2020, like I was saying, it was about making money without doing anything at all, by selling and purchasing and selling those tokens. I wouldn't compare with SEO. Over the last 5 years, the crypto investors have greatly become much more suspicious, much clever, much smarter, and by using those primitive gimmicks, those indecent people have resorted to. Those people can be cheated by those gimmicks. And of course, periodically we see news coming from us and the Ministry for Finances in Russia. I mean, this is mentioning this DeFi field and keeps talking that it cannot be regulated. It's dangerous. It's really so on the whole in some regulation and AFI. In fact, there's nothing bad. But on the whole, the main news that troubles people are those crackings. We can't say that these platforms, DeFi platforms, are cracked very often, because it's connected with the centralized stock exchanges, which is a very good aim for different cyber criminals. And we see information from time to time that some platform lost $100 million, and another platform having lost another millions of dollars. This news might be horrible. It might sound horrible, but in fact, the cracking platforms, including those of DeFi, can be not that the worst time for investors. For example, the platform, after having been cracked, if it doesn't die, it increases its security. We have had many examples, like after the token, when after having been cracked, it went down and then it started growing. I'd like to add after your words, it's not a recommendation, 100%, I'm sure. Thank you, Nikolai. It's been very interesting. I like the audience, and the audience likes your attitude and your opinion. Next issue is going to be given to the speaker who is representing the legal community in the DeFi market. Mikhail, thank you for your thorough preparation for our discussion. I know you have come here with the market opinion. Thank you for hyping our section about our report. My question to you is, in the world, what we see is a discussion about any kind of possibilities of regulating, how real that regulation is, because there's no go-between, everything is real. I'd like to give two quotations. The first quote: as soon as the central bank regulates DeFi, D is gonna disappear and only FI will stay. And the second quote: the report is kind of fairy. It doesn't have anything to do with my question. I'd like to quote, just the quotation is, it's more likely that we will see any kind of intrusion of UFO. There are no laws, Nikolai. The first thing, there's no on the DeFi market. How can you exist in that market without any kind of regulation? Together with me, Mikhail Mamuta, we're living a very good life. Will you tell us? And what I need to hear you say some commentaries about the most serious part of our report. What kind of crossroads are there? Mikhail Uspensky, hello. Dear colleagues, I'm a member of the State Duma Committee for Financial Regulation and DeFi Regulation. It's very interesting to share my ideas. It's not a legal consultation. It's only a personal opinion, what I'm going to say to you. And I will say that I have done some preparatory work, and I'd like to express not only my personal opinion, but the opinion of some professional lawyers who have been practicing, those highly qualified lawyers who have implemented many crypto projects. And of course, we have seen some likes in the chats. And of course, I'd like to say that this word theory is not ever used in our circles, in our community. What we do use is the word like. That's why the report is kind of cool, and it has this kind of equalizer between choosing between three variants. We prepared collectively and decided to make a surprise, a gift to you, to all those roundtable participants and the administrator facilitator. And we invented a fourth variant, medium rare. And in the report there are three variants of regulation: neutral, soft, and tough. And the report repeats every time that there are lawyers who are against the total regulation, that there is a kind of a gizmo. We call it a platform for self-expression, including in legal fields. We suggest that all the DeFi lawyers, you can't say that all the DeFi lawyers need want to have neutral regulation. It's not constructive, as well as to say that let's get together, let's unite around this regulator, and let's regulate everything up from bottom to up to top. Out of neutral regulation, we like the idea that the DeFi instruments don't recognize the traditional finances regulations. Those are loans, those are according to Russian civil code. These kind of relations are very good. Not to talk about the Oracle technologies, they don't need any regulation. It's kind of a sonar which can cope with the regular requirements. And FT, we are asking to lower this kind of benchmark. All those services involve outsourcing mainly. You can make a photo with your passport. And how about the biometric system? As a variant, as an option, if it suits it out of soft regulation, we suggest that some 50% be taken from the implementation of measures in raising awareness. To my shame, I visited that info. I recommend this platform. Vinaigrettes sell it. There's a man of Korea. They provide a very cool visual role. And the Bank of Russia can consider that in terms of awareness, rising awareness, and 3 Telegram channels more to add to this. And that's it. To our great happiness, the moderator is aware of that, and the professional community are aware of that. We, however strange it might sound, we believe that there's a segment that should be regulated, because this segment will always be regulated with the Bank of Russia regarding the laws. If we take into account the law of Russian Federation on credits and loans, and we're talking about the stable coins, then some small tokens that provide 1,000%. We tend to think the stable coins should be regulated by those people who announce their projects are ready to talk constructively about that. And why is it getting more and more relevant, is getting of more relevance? The colleagues, look where we are at US 10 Stellar Luna games. This is a dollar stable coin that could not rise, and we believe that the ruble stable coin is that moment that should be, that is worth being regulated. And talking about the law crowdfunding, it's been quite tough regulation. And read the instructions on the website and do your own research. That's it. Mikhail, thank you so much. It's been very interesting. Those colleagues who are dealing with the DCFRF is another scenario of regulation. The title was great. My favorite question going to be given that what Nikolai has said about the second regional decentralization. Let's sort out if there's true DeFi. I can but quote again something from the Telegram channel. Thanks, special blowers. Separate specialists of central bank understand that decentralized protocols are not that centralized, not that much centralized. There are specialists. And it's true, and we have already written about them in our report. Andrei, you are that person who can argue in this respect. How can we determine the level of decentralization? Because centralization is not a binary conception, because it's not binary. It discredits the DeFi world somehow on the whole. The first part of my question. The second part of my question is perhaps the most interesting, and stable coins can be part, and this is an element of centralization in the DeFi section. Let us be very cautious, careful, that to say that DeFi can use digital currencies of central banks and banking obligations, decentralized banking operations and obligations. How can we interconnect them? Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'd like to agree with my colleagues. This report was really very high. Was very highly critical of this report of cryptocurrencies. This report was very much detailed, was very much elaborated on. You've done a very good job. And the colleagues who wrote the first report, thank you too, because you did a very good job. I have another opinion. Okay, I have the right to have another opinion. This report is very good. Thank you so much again. Talking about, in essence, if we talk about decentralization and fundamental conceptions, I need to say that there's no determined point of view, established point of view on this. I suggest that we look at the DeFi as a mathematician looks at some sophisticated functions. Some equations cannot be resolved by calculations. Those mathematicians and economists know that there are equations. They divide those sophisticated functions into small bits. If we talk about DeFi and everything, then they start to work with every bit step by step, and the same can be said about DeFi. And to what scale? At what scale? To what scale? Is it a scale of time, or is it a scale of technologies? How shall we consider DeFi? I agree. If we take the stable coins, there's a big number of smart contracts that use the USDT, and it's not clear if that coin has a secured. This is how centralization. Smart contract in itself is a bit of code that, with the blockchain bit, it is used as a C. Both decentralized and centralized. It doesn't work. Let's have a deeper look. Blockchain, for example, they wrote in the blockchain what is the most widely used is the Ethereum. Those who write codes, forks, and there's been a new application. Have you read the conditions? Everyone can enter, no one can leave. This is also a type of centralization for the big chain. And if we look at the smart contract separately, and what is the nature of DeFi here? What is important is that you, with your own funds, you can possess your funds on your own. You can't hand over. You shouldn't, or you don't hand over to some centralized financial subject. You don't hand over your money to that centralized financial body. That the central bank does not recognize this money to be real money. It's a kind of subject for discussion. It's not money. Especially if we mean the Russian legislation, it's not money. Speaking legally, active assets. This is what it is, right? You agree? Yeah. Now the court can arrest our property, assets. Yes, this is the word, property. I apologize. I don't know how it happened, but it's my scientific development, my first diploma. 50% is guaranteed that 50% of this definition is correct from a legal point of view. And talking about the property, you can't, by using the generic word property, it's a generic definition. Let's get back to the functions. You yourself possess of this property because you have all the closed keys. You have this closed key, and this is perhaps the essence of DeFi for me personally, because I don't give them away to centralized stock markets, to some kind of a currency exchange office. I can withdraw at any moment. I can calculate, can transfer that money to this key to anyone. This is how we can talk about DeFi in these terms. There's a very important moment here, and today, at the first plenary session, I liked it. By the way, it was very interesting, quite humorous, quite intelligently humorous. Grefs might have said about that issue, might announce that issue of trust DeFi. Where did it come from? The cryptocurrencies. Why so much added to these technologies we're having? It's because this should be kind of a signal for the regulator, because they will what we lack is trust towards the existing financial system. And that rise of DeFi happened because many people wanted to make money, but the trust is the key word here. And what we saw, what happened after February 24th, this trust was even undermined even stronger. And if we talk about the digital ruble, digital currencies of central banks, I agree, I support that story with the digital ruble, because central bank, from my point of view, has done very good thing, very clever thing. They saw that the technologies, blockchain technologies, those technologies that are cryptoed, they are great, and they enable to do many good things for the economy on the whole, for the financial system. I won't enumerate everything. And to transfer national currency onto the innovation track to make those money programmed. And I believe in DeFi. I will try to explain why. There's one property, there's one propensity that is part of this digital currency, digital ruble conception, is that given that we are all supposed to have open purses on the digital market, we should have what is called the cold purse, cold wallet. These funds that are controlled by me can be used in implementing different products that are likely to be quite in synchrony with the decentralized finances. With this definition, this is one of those propensities or characteristics that enables me to believe that the digital ruble and DeFi are quite complementary with each other. Thank you so much for your opinion, and I wasn't looking at this propensity, at this characteristic. I'd like to add something, just a little bit. It's connected with the regulation of DeFi. If we talk about the platform of digital ruble, where we control the entrance and exit, and this is an issue for analysts, we should check smart contracts. This is what we call audit. It's called audit. What is the problem with the normal DeFis? It's not just a few people know the Solidity software language. Not so many people know the software language, program language. Just even fewer people are aware of the Solidity language. Next year we will have, we're going to have to make tests of CB2B payments. It's about creating new payment systems, about the fintech that can develop new solutions, different solutions about this, connected with this. There are some colleagues here who have been involved in the digital ruble project, for them to tick your suggestion. The fourth speaker.
Об этом в том числе, да, мы об этом очень много говорили, но вот мне бы хотелось бы поговорить о том, что пришло, наверное, время институционального DeFi, да, и то, что сейчас крупные игроки, банковские игроки, финансовые, в эти инструменты, говорит о том, что они очень сильно хотят в этом участвовать, и институциональный DeFi должен быть совершенно другим. Он должен сочетать в себе всю мощь инструментов, да, смарт-контрактов, которые есть сейчас в децентрализованной архитектуре, и на них
middle question.
методы.
Sorry for confusing you. You were making your hardest. What can we take? First of all, we have the technology of distributed registers. We have that technology of blockchain or distributed registers or distributed ledger. I'd like also to start with the middle question. So see what we can take. First of all, we have that technology of distributed ledgers that has wonderful propensities. It's not subject to attacks. For example, if we have a conditional bank with 10 servers, and the attack on those 10 servers can kill the bank on bitcoins. We have millions of people there, and we have 1 million active participants of Ledger, of whom, if we switch off 80% of them, it's going to leave forever without any problem. It's connected with the open nation. It's connected with the legal decentralization. It's interesting, an interesting propensity. And another story is that the smart, you're using smart contracts, aren't you? Perhaps you're using the Sberbank or VTB, but in fact, any deposit in the VTB bank or Sberbank is a smart contract. There are no clerks that shuffle the papers. There's a program that sleeps, who have everything. This program that serves your deposit in the Sberbank is a smart contract. This is a mirror, the mirror of your legal relations that are written on paper, and you're using those smart contracts. And the main basic difference is that what would you have in DeFi, that this Sberbank can change this after getting written in the distributed ledger. This contract does not change. It's one of the characteristics of this inchangeability. And I like very much is that it's possible to create complicated algorithmic products. Deposits, even we can write them. For example, if we try hard, and the arrows and pluses and minuses, and they have that picture, can have that picture. We can write absolutely contracts, papers of contracts that can fulfill very complicated conditions, and they can be audited and can fulfill very complicated, superstructural nodes. We can create a product that can work a very, very complicated way. I'd like to say that, in fact, the fantasy turned out to be quite poor. The colleagues mentioned, well, looking at those three, okay, this fantasy turned out to be very poor. The colleagues gave this example as a Terra Lubra. Terra and Luna are not very much different from the currency board technologies by which a state establishes the currency corridors. That's what Russia did when we had that currency corridor, in contrast to that guy, Korean guy, who Korean guy, with his two types of tokens. Terra was American, the American dollar, Luna was the Russian ruble, or through what England was doing when the European currencies were pegged to the dollar. And Mr. Soros, I don't remember exactly the year, perhaps the economists do remember, in 1980. The crash of Terra Luna is likewise what happened to the British pound and Russian ruble when those currency corridors crushed. And one of my cynical friends keeps telling that when we had traditional investors coming and having shoved different rubbish into there, okay, and spoiled everything up. I believe that this intellectual potential we lay down in this DeFi is not going to stop. We will and we're likely to create new products. In summing up, we can take this distributed environment that is super reliable and super stable, and I think from what we have already, lessons we have already learned in DeFi, dealing with DeFi, we can create a new layer of intellectual and financial products. Are we going to have any intermediaries there? Shall I be responsible for the words? You cannot be responsible. Okay, if I'm not responsible for the words, what we are saying here, two categories appear. DeFi, first of all, where the centralization is about zero, and such products, it's just quite a few of them. But there are some products of this type, different products that have public liquidity. And in fact, this is a very interesting story. If they can compete with you as a super regulatory intermediary on the market, I doubt. Something mental breakthrough should happen, a technological breakthrough should happen. Over some time, we will get back to the more centralized products, but not forever. Thank you so much. It's been very interesting. I'd like to make a comment. I disagree. Talking about George Soros, because I disagree with the smart contracts with the banks as a centralized program. It's a clone It's called cron in the program software engineers community. If you could see this code, and if this code had been unchangeable, if I invest my money and deposit into bank at 8% per year, so that I couldn't get it at 6% per year, this is what I would disagree with. Can you answer? Let me kill you, just academically trample you, given that the smart contracts were invented in 1984 when there were no distributed ledgers. We can't talk about unchangeability here in the academic community. Let me reconcile you. It's a discussion, a live discussion, and if there is, we can consider different definitions of smart contract and see if it matches. But there is and if we talk about the DeFi environment, we're talking about DeFi. There are well-established conceptions of smart contract, and I'm quite sincere here that this cron in the bank does not match this well-established conception of a smart contract. It's a very interesting discussion we're having. I can disclose the secret. It's essential. When they were preparing that report in the central bank, we were discussing that also. We were disputing that. We can carry on. Given that there's Denis, and we're having Denis here, a specialist, they can tell a lot about smart contracts, especially Denis. Let's carry on. Let's go on. Perhaps we can expect some surprises talking about smart contracts. Fifth question, the heavy red 5, Denis, is representing the super centralized world, and many people keep saying that DeFi is coming, advancing. We should be apprehensive. I don't see any fear in Denis's eyes. I fear a little bit, but not this, Denis. How much do you really fear, and how prepared our financial system is prepared for this competition with DeFi? Or we can admit, everyone should admit that centralized world is conservative, reliable, and DeFi is a natural business for startups. You're asking very interesting questions, by the way. I can say that if there's any DeFi, if we can say that DeFi on the whole is often a myth. Why? Because however much cryptocurrency world is trying to break through the centralized world, it hasn't broken from centralized. All those systems, tokens, Moderator, and so on and so forth, all those applications that exist in the DeFi world, they are part of the centralized world, NFT and tokens and all that. But in fact, DeFi, or we're talking about DeFi in the context of its connection with the fiat world. Fiat is everything that is not crypto, dollars, rubles, and so on and so forth, so that we could understand each other. We're talking about the fact that how finances exist that are created outside of the decentralized sphere. When emittents, issuers, banks, not banks in countries, how these finances can exist. They exist in a decentralized way, in a regulated way, in their own environment, dealing with smart contracts, with different protocols, and until the moment when they try to enter some fiat world or get back into this fiat world. And one could say that DeFi without this centralized world cannot exist. Regulation does exist, and we can say that those countries that let cryptocurrency market, stock exchanges into their world are pretty much aware of that. They are aware that at any moment they can close this gate, restrict the movement of fiat with cryptos and back by some regulatory methods, techniques. They can close all the cryptocurrency stock exchanges and make them be serviced in traditional banks. Or, for example, they announced, that they want to buy a bank to work qualitatively with the financial world, and in doing that, I should say that what is good in DeFi and what is not available in the traditional world is that the DeFi enables to program some money-connected event. We're talking, and we're going to start talking about the differences, about the current electronic money from that money that can be tokenized and digitalized, that fits within this process and can be following those rules that are followed on that platform. This is the moment when we see clearly the borders between the traditional finances and the conditionally non-traditional finances from the point of their decentralization. Decentralization in the context of the DeFi that exists in the cryptocurrency market is totally broken or divorced from the CeFi. One cannot exist without the other one. Talking about programmed money, for example, with the business, connected with the business industry, business sphere, this is the moment where you can go to. Here, if we have a look at the stable coins that exist on the European market and in any international market, there are, for example, there's a private issuer, for example, MADT. You can't say exactly what is behind it. And there's another coin, USDC, for example, that is issued by the Circle, that is submitted to the European regulation from the point of regulation, from the point of reserves, and it might not be different much from the traditional money, except by the fact that you can program them. Big money can be programmed. You can establish certain rules of dealing and handling with this in order to carry out, say, some calculations and transactions. From the point of view of fear DeFi, we don't fear. If it's interesting to look at it, yes, of course it's interesting. Why? Because we should understand clearly that it depends upon where you're looking to. For example, in the global markets, foreign markets, Forex is the main area of using the DeFi. CeFi, for example, boundary transactions, and its use in the traditional world. The banks have copied the same from the Ripple, because Ripple has invented that technology. It started handling this down SRP cryptocurrency, through which it changes one fiat into another one. And if that DeFi had not existed, central banks would never have joined, would never have dared go into that, because all the banks and commercial banks and central banks are conservative. They don't need everything is suitable for them. And here you see clients experience a technology that enables to look at the finances another way. For example, it enables to rule the stacks of liquidity in a new way. The new DeFi and traditional CeFi, if we control liquidity by merging one fiat into another one, guess what? It can be done with cryptocurrencies. And talking about this, should that and to do that, shall we have the central digital currency, central banks, be converted into the open blockchains? We are talking here, I think, about some combination of models. Why? Because if you see the corporate decentralized applications available on the market, blockchain is one. For example, the platforms of dealing with property. There's kind of an operator. All those platforms have an operator that are responsible for smart contracts, for auditing, and what for the rules they should follow, and for the rules of where those tokenized money funds match. It's not DeFi, it's decentralization, or it's CeFi again. The essence is, the thing is that we're talking about the fact that if we want to implement DeFi into traditional finances, or in some industry-connected business where we need exercise control over the money flows, or if we want to define some and follow some rules, in any case we say that there's an operator on that platform who is outside of the financial system. It's equally distant from the rules and by the operator, and this money is audited. The money funds used by the platform are audited from the point of their rules of their implementation and investment. The rules are not that good because they're connected with the inefficient bank. The sense of inefficiency, the banks all have, the banking systems have any other process, some other process, things that don't allow money to go freely around. And when you raise that money funds at the level of clients, of the client's consumption, and for example, at the level of traditional ruble, that is almost in the same amount, available to the same amount, sloshing around at the platform. There's no emission, there's no issuance. But the function of central bank stays in the CeFi, but it enables to correctly implement the CeFi, this cryptocurrency experience. It's talking about the approaches. And however much we have been trying to implement that blockchain to our needs, we have always borrowed those approaches and tried to implement them in the traditional world. And the possibility of using a tokenized digital money in the business processes is about taking that experience and from there and implement it here. Central banks, like I said, would never have done what Ripple has done. At the same time, they're learning to clients are changing, new clients are coming, technologies and new technologies are coming that gives a boost to the new technologies, to development of new technologies. Okay, we're time restricted now. I'm trying to indicate time restrictions. Now, what we've heard now that the inefficient interaction banks would take that experience of DeFi, and that's it. And where's that DeFi then? Everything is determined by the client, and the fact that is that none of the banks is ready to change on its own. This is client that changes its central banks. Commercial banks are changing under the impact of some external factor. There's a client's demand that demands something different, and using the current technologies, you can't do that. Thank you. A sixth question to a special is given to a question who has quit the central bank recently and perhaps reconsidered his opinions. Stepan promised that he would spice up our discussion, and this is for the first time when giving this question when I'm about to pronounce that word, risks, because Stepan is about to answer this question. Many consider that the risks are different on the DeFi because there's a number of risks, other risks on the CeFi, perhaps. There are risks of controlling the protocol and other risks available on the market of in the centralized. At the same time, DeFi has the same risks that are inherent of the traditional financial markets. Sounds like we are having here a double burden for the financial markets here. Stepan, what are the really significant risks in the DeFi, and how different they are from traditional ones in the central CeFi, and given the scale of this event DeFi, and can they carry threats to the traditional financial system? We could have finished after having this question. If we get back, this is hypothesis. DeFi is a hypothesis, and such hypotheses in this world have already had a lot. We have had a lot of them. And there's a hypothesis that appeared, and a technology appeared based upon that, a technology and blockchain technology. We should use this technology in the classical financial structure. It's already been using it for a long time, not a year, for 5 years at least, and no one has been talking about that because there's a cutting edge here. I understand that this system of distributed ledger is just only a guaranteed delivery, is an axiom. It's not information, protected information, but those specialists in information security that are sitting here would say that it's another hypothesis we haven't researched yet. We believe that the blocks and blockchain, as a mathematician I can say, this is a protected system, but no one knows how to find the key and the complexities of decoding. The entire market of regulation in the financial business field, we have that security of rights protection for clients, and someone is rendering financial services, someone consumed them, and someone was protecting either central bank or where the entire system was built up, and the technology of this ledger, distributed ledgers, enabled for a decentralized technology to appear, where there's no intermediary. And like our colleagues say, these are peer-to-peer relations. We strike a deal, and who is then responsible, whom to go to what court of justice you should go. It's kind of an automated market maker. and they indicate an algorithm, and 52 token, one token you can put in one token, you can get more, and everything is calculated automatically as a public story. It works. Either you believe in that or you don't believe in that. Given the global access to this structure, the barriers of access for clients to the smart contract are not available, and we can't impose anything if people don't use smart contracts. The business will die, and many people start thinking outside of those regulators. What did we do a long time ago? We regulated about 10 or 50 intermediaries. If we're talking about the federal law, that federal law we've been using from 2020. Now we're having operators of financial systems as regulators. We keep saying, yeah, we have digital right. You can apply for third persons, but we need to have an operator that fulfills those transactions, peer-to-peer transactions. Central bank regulates the activities of infrastructure that shall be provided with true information. There's Federal Law 159 that regulates everything. What is classical access information system without the operator? Our law of 149 does not perceive this as an information system. It's something that exists that without an operator. And when we talk about regulation, as all the regulators, we made a step of legal law from the point of regulation of non-financial intermediaries. Understanding, keeping in mind that they can disappear, is a hypothesis only. We are transferred to regulate those information systems and financial systems where those transactions are regulated. And the regulation of smart contracts is something that changes the system radically, because we're all aware that they have their own owners, the rules of owners, and all the blockchains have a certain level of decentralization, beginning from publicly open, absolutely publicly opened, but in the last 2 days it has been disproved. It can be changed until the systems that have notoriety nodes, what we call decentralized autonomous society, that starts working. And the diesel that you given as an example, even if when we talk about regulation of centralized issues of those tokens, is no decentralized issues, but emission. But in decentralized issues, there's a decentralized meeting. Diesel is just a down one. If you have seen what is going on, instead of ISU, another fashion word, buzzword appeared down. Smart contracts have appeared in ICO, and let's talk. And there's an example. And then what starts is the activities undertaken by the regulatory services. What shall be done with this until they live in that outer world that is divorced from the DeFi, and there are games, there is gaming that has their own values. There is money, and for example, here's some kind of toy that costs about 70,000 rubles. And here the same. If there's a second system that is connected with its own world, but the entrance and exit points in the fiat are the financial institutes, of which many have talked about, in decentralized, non-regulated. Because this is hype, it might be hype, or it can be a new reality. There's always an exit, the exit and entrance and exit as soon as the central bank's currencies breach, if those are breaches, or direct issuance by central banks of their own currencies in a decentralized architecture pattern. We're gonna get liquidity as value currency of centralized values, which will change the attitude towards this regulation. This is where we would start to talk about regulation of those smart contracts that would be placed on the basis of those transactions and the risks. It's a new system, absolutely new system. The risk of information security, for example, is higher than the normal system because there are no operators. And the same can be said about the risks of legal recognition of transactions. They are higher than there's no operator. There's no operator. Take our civil code. We have made all the amendments connected with the smart contracts and blockchains and contracts in the blockchain. See, for example, you write a written form. I'm not a lawyer. I can quote. If the text does not change, it can be repeated. It doesn't require, but this is just a written form. Even no signing is required. We're living in that paradigm that if I see you an SMS message and we can strike a deal in the year 2022. Today, Russian legislation from the point of regulation of digital turnover and issues of smart contracts. We have done everything we could in port of the CFA in terms of the regulation of the rest of the market. It's a separate aspect. A smart contract in Russian civil code is indicated as a method of fulfilling discharging a contract. This is the discharging of the contract. Talking from the point of the American common law, there are 4 positions regarding what a smart contract is. As a method of its fulfilling, I have been involved in making amendments to the law. Let's try. We did everything in order to avoid the situation when everything should be bad. The same token, different jurisdictions, it can assume different forms, and the same can be said about smart contract. If we want to have that smart contract, if the sides could go to some court of arbitrage, it should be recognized as legally enforceable. And if the one same smart contract is considered in different jurisdictions, it can be considered in different ways. The last verdict ruled by some French court just proves that. So giving all this decentralization of this, if when we say that we want to have real relations of the sides, it's not a game, it's business. These are business relations. We all have disputes because the sides are always ready to go to court to protect the consumers' rights or go to the court of arbitrage. But under that jurisdiction, they're going to go with. This is where the problem would occur, because now we are dealing with unregulated forms of activities. So now we have trespassed our time restrictions. Dennis would add something. When Stepan is talking, I think we are using the same language. The Russian model of DeFi, as an example, how it works in the centralized world, for example. CFA, for example, without addressing third persons, there is an operator that occurs, and the difference in the DeFi that is used in the non-traditional crypto world can be launched within 1 or 2 hours. Here, talking about what I mean here is that DeFi, we have copied. They have DeFi, but at the same time we have seen such a deep level of centralization that appeared that there's no DeFi. And what we have is centralized world, centralized DeFi, pseudo DeFi. This is what we get. Sounds like that. We as a market should take special attention to this DeFi and the cryptocurrency, because it's a digital twin that can be used as a copy of how they are using it. And this is a very good advantage, very big advantage of how to use that. Thank you for this round of answers and questions. I want to ask you to launch the voting. I'd like to give the floor to our speakers just to say a few words. If we imagine that DeFi is such a big experiment on the horizon of 10 years, what can we expect? Does that mean that it's going to ruin the traditional financial market? Just a few words. It's not going to ruin that financial market, as I was saying. It's not such an aim, objective to ruin, to kill the traditional financial market. First of all, what we see on the horizon of 10 or 20 years, it won't go anywhere, because smart contracts is something that cannot be ignored. I think that's not going, but it can improve considerably. I would be short. It's the same story with the television. You can go to the first channel and can start watching the first channel of the television, and you can see its copy. And when everyone else will mutate with the others, okay? And we'll see these semi-liquidities. Those will take normal money, and those people will take, and the report has been wonderful. And the regulation is neutral. We can talk a little bit about stable coins, MJ. And what I can say, I think, is that today's financial market is expecting some kind of transformation. I can agree with Denise. The banks have surmised that the blockchain is a very good thing. And the implementation of the digital ruble will make a strong impact upon how the traditional ways of our dealing with money. And what is more, in about 10 years, we will start, well, let's just start, and the regulator will see that, we will see some kind of CFR close to the hybrid ones, and we will see some tokenized assets that will merge into the financial system, and we are supposed to use them almost every day. Victor, you know, I would say in the following way, we have always admitted that the money is evolving, and the money we're using now is something different from how our parents dealt with. For example, when I take a ride in a taxi, I pay with the money I do that transaction, paying with the taxi driver by using there's a lot of different theories here. We have 4 different schools of theory of money, and now people are start to understand that money carries information in this proper sense of the word, and if that money evolves in that way, and it chimes with the new model of distributed ledgers, this is when the DeFi really starts to bite. And if it is decentralized, why it's a Chinese model, because in China the money stopped being the universal equivalent. And if you don't have that social ranking, you won't be able to spend your money on anything. If those combined diagrams start to be used, this is a bad scenario for the DeFi and distributed ledgers. We are not aware, we can't be aware, because it's a complicated economic process. We can watch it and start to understand what's going to happen. Those who hit the mark, who guess okay, will earn lots of money. Victor has said a very important thing. I completely agree. Until now, we haven't understood that money is information. These are data. This paradigm is going to enter our life gradually, and this digital ruble will help in transferring towards that paradigm, that money is data, not only just these are data. And those who can learn how to work with those data, this is the one that can make the market and that can earn lots of money. Dennis, I think it's unavoidable from the point of the DeFi is likely to be part of client's life, and I would agree with the colleagues that, in fact, if we have a look at the money as a conditional commodity, DeFi changes the model of consumption. What Andrei are talking about with the calling money information to the information, these are what we see are changes of channels and types of consumption. When we talk about money as information, that becoming part of some processes together with that information that it carries. We're talking about the control of using money funds, money assets. It's about how this information is consumed. It's about how this business model is going to make impacts upon the financial model with all the statuses. It's a new business model, DeFi. This is what it is. Stefan, DeFi is not a new business model where the client is this is where the technology and money is. For example, the client is in this ecosystem, and they are working with financial institutions. This is where, when those smart contracts get demanded, what is a token? It's not more than a smart contract. A smart contract token, the token, if we understand that the client is working and living in this system. With all the banks, Sberbank, Alfa-Bank, they are creating this out. These are not banks here in this example. They are creating an ecosystem. Tomorrow we're going to have a system dedicated to the ecosystems. I'm not talking about the meta universes. If this is true, and the paradigm is dealing with this paradigm, if it is hypothesis, and from my point of view, the DeFi will be demanded. It doesn't mean that it will replace or it will occupy a substantial share of the market. It might stay as a niche technology, but the fact that it's going to take its own niche, occupy its own niche, that is sure. Thank you, colleagues. And let's have a look at the results of the voting. Who has won And the question was how crypto and decentralized finance should become a future of finances, a future for the centralized finances with some elements of crypto. This is the answer. Thank you so much, dear friends, for your time. Sorry, I apologize for transcending the time restrictions, and thank you, and thanks to the speakers. Thank you so much.